Alright fellas, we just saw Edgar Berlanga face off against Hamzah Sheeraz on a massive card, the Ring 3 card. Berlanga was incredibly outspoken in this fight build-up, I'm sure you've seen it, beefing not only with Shiraz, but even with uninvolved parties like Oscar De La Hoya. But was he able to back up the talk in the ring? We absolutely need to break it all down, as well as what might be next for the pair. Well, as well, I want to touch on some of these other mega fights that went down on this huge card, including Shakur, Matias and Morrell. But just quickly, if you don't know, my name's Cloyston. I cover everything boxing as it happens to keep you informed, so make sure to subscribe and I will always keep you in the loop. Now, this card had a whole lot of low-key bangers on it. It wasn't a card that had super popular names, but it had fantastic fights. So let's start with the main event, which was Berlanga versus Hamzah Sheeraz. Now, both fighters were coming into this fight coming off a bit of a rocky period in their careers. For Hamzah, his last fight was Adames, which was pretty controversial. There were scenes of him allegedly being told mid-fight the scores of the fight, which if you don't know, is horrifically against the rules. And on top of that, there was even more controversy with the fight being called a draw, although most thought the opposite. Whilst for Berlanga, his last few fights have been pretty interesting also. He went 12 rounds with Canelo, lost, but celebrated like he won the undisputed title in the months following. And then after fighting the undisputed world champion, in his comeback fight he faced this fella, which of course was seen as a bit of embarrassment coming from a guy who just fought Canelo and celebrated like he won. So both had a lot to prove going into this fight, and truly that's why there was just so much heat. But unfortunately, Berlanga in the build-up seemed distracted. He was not only wanting to beef with Shiraz, but he was wanting to beef with the likes of Oscar De La Hoya, taking his mind off the task at hand. A lot of people thought before the fight that it was going to be very 50-50, but once they got in the ring, it showed to be a pretty one-sided affair. The first couple rounds were slower, more feeling out rounds, but Shiraz's height and reach advantage was obviously massive. By the fourth round though, it all changed a bit. Shiraz began picking his shots with precision, and he managed to crack Berlanga with a vicious combination that floored him. Berlanga, lying on his back, banged his gloves together and smirked as he got up, only to be dropped again moments later. And the only thing that saved him from being knocked down a third time in the fourth round was the bell. And in my opinion, the fight should have been stopped after that second knockdown. And the fifth round didn't last long. Shiraz stormed out of his corner and landed a clean left hook, followed by a thunderous right hand, sending Berlanga crashing to the canvas for the third and final time. The referee waved it off 17 seconds into this fifth round. Shiraz clinched victory, redeeming and launching himself into massive future opportunities. Whilst for Berlanga, he's now left in a bit of a tough situation. Where to go from here? For Berlanga, it's a very long road back. A world title shot is really out of reach now for at least a couple years. With the belts held up with Canelo and him seemingly wanting to hold on to them for the foreseeable future, it's hard to see him make a path back to the big time quickly. I think Berlanga is a good boxer, but is he world class? Not really. His profile really was grown by something I would call the Top Rank protection program, where at the time when he was coming up, Top Rank were exceptional at matching their fighters against relative nobodies to make them seem way better than they truly are. And I think tonight's performance was just another showing of that. Although he's a good fighter, he's awfully one-dimensional. But even with that, I think there's one clear big fight for him that needs to happen next, which is Berlanga versus Caleb Plant. They're both coming off losses, they both have beef, they can both talk. It's the perfect fight for either to try and redeem themselves. And it would be a pretty good money fight for the both. So I do hope this is what's next for Berlanga. For Shiraz though, it's a lot more interesting. As long as Canelo gets through Crawford, I think that's what will be next. It's already been hinted at in the past that after Crawford it would either be Eubank or Shiraz, but my money would now be on Shiraz. Shiraz is Turkey's boy, and he would put up a better fight against Canelo compared to Eubank. And I think the Saudis want to make a star out of Shiraz, when Eubank, honestly, he's on the way out. Canelo is on a 4-fight deal with the Saudis, and with 2 fights remaining on the deal, as long as he gets through Crawford, this is what I expect to be next. All other potential options like Bivol seem to be tied up. But we really need to see how that Crawford fight goes. Maybe Canelo loses and there'll need to be a rematch, and Shiraz, he's left looking for something else. So I guess only time will tell. Now, Berlanga Sheeraz wasn't the only big fight that happened. We also had the battle of Zepeda and Shakur Stevenson. In this fight, Shakur, he put up a more conventionally entertaining performance. He didn't really box off the back foot as usual. He was flat-footed for most of the fight, and he was willing to trade. Yet with his fantastic boxing IQ and defensive skills, he stopped it from being an absolute all-out brawl. Although he did get rocked in that third round, Shakur cruised home to a fairly impressive unanimous decision victory. And honestly, it was impressive to see when his hands aren't broken, he can really box whoever, however he wants. Yet it does make me wonder with some of the shots he was taking this time out, if he was fighting a true knockout artist, how would he be able to take those shots? But we can't speculate too much. It was a genuinely good display, and I'm looking forward to what's next. But what's next for him is a pretty complex question to answer. With Davis wrapped up in legal troubles, there's really his only super fight at lightweight gone. If you want to know what happened to Davis, go check out my last video from yesterday. But other than Davis, I think what we would all want to see next would either be an Abdullah Mason fight or a Floyd Schofield fight. And with Mason tied up with a bout in November, you would have to assume a fight against Schofield would be more likely. Yet with the ongoing De La Hoya and Turkey squabble and Schofield being signed to a long-term deal with Golden Boy, it will be interesting to see if this fight can easily be made. Other than those two, it's pretty slim pickings at lightweight, so I'm not really expecting him to rush into his next fight either. But if Mason manages to win his next fight, I wouldn't be surprised if a unification is planned for early next year. I won't go on for too long about the other fights, but they are absolutely worth mentioning. Alberto vs Matias was an incredibly entertaining bout, and so was the Morrell fight. I thought both fights were super close and would love to hear who you guys thought won down below. Of course, Matias and Morrell clinched decisions and we'll move on. Although one interesting thing with the Matias fight, Turkey seemed to announce that Matias' next fight would be against Dalton Smith in a few months on the Ring 4 card. But apparently Alberto has a rematch clause, so it will be interesting to see how this all plays out. And something else I have to mention from the weekend was that fantastic Serrano vs Taylor card. It was a great night of women's boxing, topped with a great fight which rounded out their trilogy. I personally didn't think there really needed to be a third fight, but I do agree with the 97-93 scorecards, and I had Taylor winning the third one. After this performance, she has to go down as one of the few or the best woman boxer of all time. And also, as an Aussie, I have to shout out Shanika Johnson for her fantastic performance. It was an impressive, undisputed fight, and it's worth a watch if you missed it. But now I want to hear what you guys think of all the boxing of the weekend. What do you think of Shiraz? What do you think of Shakur? And everyone else's performance on the Ring 3 card. Did you enjoy it? And where do you see them all going next? Also, would love to hear just any other general takes you have down below. I do love reading all of them. But if you did enjoy the video, please make sure to like and subscribe. It does a ton to help the channel. But thanks for watching, fellas, and I'll catch you in the next one.